In a quiet, mystical village named Duru, people and peculiar creatures lived in strange harmony. Among them was a young woman named Obiora, known throughout the village for her beauty and gentle spirit. Her eyes sparkled with a kindness that made hearts soften, and her presence brought calm wherever she went. The villagers adored her, and men frequently tried to win her affection. "Obiora, you are as graceful as the moon. Will you marry me?" they would say with hopeful smiles. But Obiora always responded the same way, softly, kindly, but firmly, "Thank you, but I'm not ready." She was polite to all but never opened her heart to anyone. Each morning, she arrived early at the marketplace carrying baskets full of the freshest fruits and vegetables. Her stall quickly became the most popular in Duru. Shoppers flocked to her not just for her goods, but for her warm smile and serene company. Still, despite her constant presence in the market, no one could say where Obiora lived. "She comes early and leaves before dark," the villagers whispered. "No one's ever followed her home. Where could she be staying?" Yet no one dared press her. She gave generously, treated everyone with dignity, and never spoke ill of anyone. People accepted her mystery and continued to admire her from a distance. One bright morning, a traveler named Emma came into Duru. He was tall, handsome, and full of charisma. He'd heard that the village was known for its sweet mangoes and gentle people. But when he stepped into the market and saw Obiora for the first time, the fruits were quickly forgotten. "She's breathtaking," he murmured under his breath. Emma approached her stall with an awkward smile. "Hi," he said. "I'm Emma. I've just arrived in Duru." Obiora looked up, her expression as calm as ever. "Welcome to Duru, Emma. I'm Obiora. How can I help you today?" He bought a few fruits just to stay longer. They spoke of simple things: the harvest, the weather, the river near the hills. Emma left the market that day with more than just food. He left with a heart stirred by something new. And so, day after day, Emma returned. He claimed he was trying to understand local trade customs, but everyone could see the real reason. He was falling for Obiora. Though she remained reserved, she didn't push him away. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. Laughter often floated from her stall now, something the villagers hadn't heard before. One evening, as the market prepared to close and shadows began to stretch across the ground, Emma lingered beside her. "Let me walk you home," he offered. "The path may not be safe this late." Obiora hesitated, her eyes darting for just a moment toward the forest that loomed beyond the road. Then she nodded slowly. "All right," she said. They walked silently at first. The sun had dipped below the trees, and the cool breath of night was settling in. A strange stillness surrounded them. Then Emma felt something cold, a whisper of a touch, graze his back. He turned sharply, but no one was there. His skin prickled, and his breath quickened. "Obiora," he whispered. "Did you feel that?" She walked ahead, calm, almost detached. "It's only the wind," she said gently. But Emma couldn't shake the unease. A chill crept up his spine, and his steps grew unsteady. The trees, once silent, seemed to murmur now. Finally, he stopped. "I think I should go back," he said. "It's getting late." Obiora turned to him. Her voice was soft but firm. "If you're scared, Emma, it's okay. You can return." There was no anger in her tone, only acceptance. Emma nodded nervously, his eyes darting around, and then he turned and fled back toward the village. He never returned to the market after that. Days passed. Then weeks. Obiora never spoke of him, though her smile seemed quieter now. The villagers noticed his absence but didn't question it. After all, Emma was a traveler. Perhaps he had simply moved on. But the truth was far more complex. Obiora held a secret known to no one in Duru. She wasn't born in the village. She came from the ancient magical forest that bordered its northern edge, a forest whispered about in tales and feared for its enchantments. In that forest lived Obiora's family, creatures not quite human, not quite beast. They were shapeshifters, spirit-born beings tied to the oldest magic in the land. Obiora, the only one able to maintain a human form indefinitely, had long felt the pull toward the human world. Her family, however, had warned her sternly. "You must never fall in love with a human," her mother would say. "Our worlds are too different. They will never understand us." When Emma began visiting her, Obiora's family grew anxious. Though they had never come into Duru, they watched her from the shadows. That night, when Emma offered to walk her home, they acted. The cold touch he'd felt had been one of them, a silent warning sent through magic. They didn't want him hurt, just frightened enough to leave. And it worked. He vanished from her life. Obiora felt the sting of their interference. She had liked Emma, maybe more than she wanted to admit. But now, she was certain. She didn't want to live in secret anymore. She didn't want to be governed by rules built on fear. She wanted to choose her path. One morning before dawn, she walked into the forest. Birds stirred in their nests as she passed, and the wind whispered secrets only she could hear. She went to her family's clearing, where the trees formed a natural circle. Her parents, siblings, and elders gathered as she approached. "I love you," she said, voice steady, "but I need to live my own life. I don't belong in the shadows." A hush fell over the glade. Her mother's face was full of sadness. "The world of humans is dangerous," her father warned. "I know," Obiora replied. "But it's where I want to be." After a long silence, her mother stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on her cheek. "Then go, Obiora. But beware, the world may not welcome you the way you hope." With that, Obiora turned and left, stepping out of the forest for the last time. She returned to Duru with a heart both heavy and hopeful, ready to begin a new life. The villagers still admired her, unaware of the magical roots she had just severed. She was no longer just the mysterious beauty from the market. She was now a woman choosing freedom over fear. Obiora's days in Duru took on a quiet rhythm. She continued to sell her fruits and vegetables at the market, always arriving early and leaving before sunset. She smiled often, greeted everyone warmly, and spoke kindly to even the grumpiest elders. No one knew of the farewell she had made to her family in the forest. She had buried that chapter in her heart. But not everything was left behind. Though she was free, Obiora could feel something still clinging to her spirit, something heavy. It was as though a faint shadow followed her, especially when the evenings came and the wind grew still. Determined to break all spiritual bonds, Obiora decided to seek help from a higher force. She walked deep into the hills to a sacred shrine hidden in the cliffs, Abari's shrine. Abari was known across the region as a powerful spirit, one who helped those seeking to escape fate or rewrite their paths. Kneeling before the shrine's altar, Obiora whispered, "Great Abari, I have left my family. I no longer want to be bound by their magic. I want to live among the humans as one of them. Please, sever all ties between us." A golden light shimmered through the altar's stones, and Abari's presence emerged, soft and glowing. "You are brave," the spirit said. "But your family will not accept this easily. If I cut this bond, they may retaliate." "I'm ready," Obiora replied, her voice steady. "I choose this life." Abari nodded slowly. With a graceful motion, she raised her hand, and a pulse of warm energy flowed through Obiora's body. The ancestral bond was broken. Obiora felt a sudden lightness, as if a chain around her soul had been released. But back in the forest, her family felt the snap of the severance like a blow. Her mother cried out in pain and sorrow. Her father clenched his fists. In a storm of grief, her mother whispered a curse into the wind. May you never know lasting love with a human. May every heart that draws near abandon you. The curse sailed silently across the distance and clung invisibly to Obiora's soul. Back in Duru, Obiora was unaware of what had happened. She felt hopeful, renewed. Her interactions with villagers became more open. She started forming friendships, laughing more freely, and engaging in market events. But deep down, she still felt a hollow space, an ache she couldn't quite name. One day, a well-traveled merchant named Kalu arrived in Duru. He was tall, charming, and carried the confidence of someone who had seen the world. He sold rich cloth from distant regions, silks and dyed fabrics that sparkled in the sunlight. When Kalu saw Obiora, he was instantly intrigued. "Who is she?" he asked one of the market women. "That's Obiora," the woman replied with a knowing smile. "The one with the fruits, and the mystery." Kalu introduced himself the next day. "Good morning," he said with a grin. "I'm Kalu, the merchant with the brightest cloth in all the villages. And you must be Obiora, the one with the brightest smile." Obiora laughed, not used to such boldness. "You're quite the salesman." He visited her stall every day. Their conversations grew playful and familiar. He brought her fabrics as gifts and helped her carry baskets. People began to whisper again, but this time, with hope. Kalu eventually confessed his feelings. "Obiora, I want you to be my wife. Come meet my family. Let's build a life together." Obiora's heart fluttered. After Emma, after the forest, after her prayers, could this be it? Could she finally know love? She nodded softly. "Yes. I will meet them." Kalu was overjoyed. They traveled to his village the following week. His home was large, his family respected. When they arrived, his mother studied Obiora closely. She smiled politely, but something in her eyes was distant. That night, after dinner, Kalu's mother pulled him aside. "She is lovely," she said. "But there is something about her, something that does not sit right with me. I've heard whispers, strange stories. I do not trust her." Kalu was stunned. "But mother, she's kind. She's gentle." The woman shook her head. "This union is not right. I forbid it." Crushed, Kalu returned to Obiora with pain in his voice. "My mother, she won't approve. I must listen to her." Obiora didn't cry. She only looked at him, and then quietly turned away. She walked out of the house, out of the village, and back to Duru, where her heart shattered quietly under the sky. The curse was real. Still, Obiora went back to her routine. The market. The laughter. The daily greetings. But inside, she felt more alone than ever. She longed for peace. For love. For a life untouched by magic and pain. She decided to return to Abari's shrine. This time, she knelt not to cut ties, but to seek mercy. "Great Abari," she whispered. "The curse that follows me has taken away my joy. I beg you, lift it. I only wish to live in peace and love freely." Abari appeared once more in a soft shimmer. "You were brave to come again," the spirit said. "And your heart remains true. I will lift the curse, but know this, if ever you allow anger to rule you, the curse will return, stronger than before." Obiora nodded. "I understand. I will keep my heart pure." With a wave of her hand, Abri sent a breeze around Obiora, warm, peaceful, and full of hope. The weight in her soul vanished. The skies above seemed clearer, the path home softer. Back in Duru, Obiora's days brightened. The villagers noticed her glow returned. She laughed again, and when people complimented her, she no longer turned away in fear. Her life felt whole again, almost. Then, one afternoon, as she fetched water from the village stream, a gentle voice spoke behind her. "Are you all right?" She turned to see a man with kind eyes and a gentle face. He had a quiet strength in his voice. "My name is Chidubem," he said. "I saw you sitting here and thought you might need someone to talk to." Obiora offered a soft smile. "I'm Obiora," she replied. "And, thank you. I guess I was just lost in thought." They spoke for a while, then again the next day, and the next. Chidubem didn't press her with questions. He didn't ask about her past or her quiet moments. He simply enjoyed her company and made her feel seen. One evening, as the sun painted the sky, Chidubem took her hand. "Obiora," he said, "I care for you. I don't know what you've been through, but I want to be with you." Tears filled her eyes. I've been cursed," she whispered. "I've had my heart broken." "Are you sure?" He nodded. "I don't want your past. I want your present, and your future." Obiora smiled through her tears. "Then yes, Chidubem. Let's walk this road together." Obiora and Chidubem quickly became the talk of Duru, not with suspicion this time, but with delight. Their love seemed natural, peaceful, and good. He visited her every day. They walked together to the market, fetched water from the stream, and laughed like children under the baobab trees. Chidubem never asked for more than she offered. He didn't pry into her silences. He only held space for her to be fully herself. And slowly, Obiora's heart opened. When Chidubem proposed to her on a quiet morning by the stream, she cried, not out of fear, but out of hope. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." The villagers celebrated the news with joy. Obiora had always been one of their own, and now, seeing her smile fully again, they felt like they were part of her healing. Songs filled the air, and colorful cloth danced in the wind as wedding preparations began. Obiora felt peace at last. The curse was gone, her heart was light, and her future felt certain. On the day of the wedding, the village square bloomed with music and color. Flowers were draped along every doorway, and the drums echoed joyfully. Chidubem wore a robe dyed in ocean blue, while Obiora walked in shimmering white and gold. Her head wrap crowned her like a queen. They exchanged vows under the sun, surrounded by dancing children, clapping elders, and smiling neighbors. Every eye glowed with hope. But that night, as the stars blinked awake and the newlyweds retreated to their home, something changed. As Obiora stood before the mirror to remove her head wrap, a strange sensation gripped her. A chill spread through her spine. Her skin itched. Her muscles pulled in unfamiliar directions. Chidubem turned to say something but froze. Obiora's legs had fused. Her skin shimmered like polished scales. Her form twisted and lengthened, and within seconds, standing in her place was a giant python, majestic, silent, and unmistakably magical. Chidubem's face turned pale. He stumbled backward, knocking over a stool, eyes wide with terror. Obiora stared back at him, her heart breaking inside her scaly form. She tried to speak, to explain, but no words came. Chidubem screamed and bolted out the door. Within minutes, the entire village stirred. The sound of his cries drew neighbors from their homes. People clutched lanterns and farming tools, rushing toward the newlyweds' home. "She turned into a serpent," he cried. I saw it with my own eyes. The villagers gathered in fear, whispering and pointing. Could it be the old curse? Some murmured. Was the forest magic never truly gone? Slowly, the python emerged from the doorway, graceful but undeniably terrifying. The crowd stepped back, children clutched to parents' sides. The celebration had turned into confusion and dread. The elders conferred in hushed voices. "We must call the oracle," one of them said. "Only they can see through this mystery." By morning, the oracle arrived. The villagers stood in a wide circle. The python, Obiora, waited silently at the center, her eyes filled with sorrow. Chidubem stood to the side, still shaken and unsure of what he had seen, or what he truly felt. The oracle, wrapped in dark robes, approached slowly and placed a carved staff in the ground. "Obiora," they said, "if you can hear us, come forward." A strange light flickered, and before the villagers' eyes, the python shimmered and transformed. Obiora stood once again in her human form, barefoot in her wedding dress, tears streaking her face. "I am Obiora," she said. "I have always been Obiora." Gasps rang out. She looked at Chidubem first, then at the villagers. "I was born of the forest. My family has old magic in their blood. I alone can live in human form. But I long for more, for freedom, for love." She paused, her voice breaking. "I left my family. I begged the spirit Abri to sever the bond between us. But in their sorrow, my mother laid a curse on me, that I would never find happiness with a human. That every love would end in despair." The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. "I thought the curse had lifted," she whispered. "But maybe it only waited." The oracle turned slowly to Chidubem. "And you, son of the village, what do you have to say?" Chidubem stood frozen. After a long pause, he spoke, voice trembling. "I was drawn to her beauty, her strength, her kindness. But he stopped, swallowing hard. "I also saw her as a way to gain influence. To become someone greater. I thought if I married her, I could rise above my station. I planned to use her, to gain wealth and then, leave." A stunned silence spread through the crowd. Chidubem continued, barely able to meet anyone's eyes. "But I never imagined. I never knew she carried such pain. I thought only of myself. And I am ashamed." The villagers murmured, their shock rippling outward like a wave. Obiora stared at Chidubem, her heartbreak deepening. The oracle stepped forward. Obiora wanted love. Chidubem wanted gain. The curse, perhaps, was not just magic, but a mirror of intent. The oracle raised their staff. "You both must live with your choices. Chidubem, you sought to use a woman touched by spirit. Now, you will remain by her side. You must walk with her, not as a conqueror, but as a companion. This is your consequence. Not by force, but by truth." Gasps spread once again. The elders looked to one another, some nodding slowly. "Let this be a lesson," the oracle said, "to all who chase love without respect. May your union stand, not as a punishment, but as a path to healing and redemption." The decision was final. The villagers whispered. Some with pity. Others with admiration. But none with scorn. Chidubem looked at Obiora, no longer with fear, but with guilt, with regret, and perhaps, with the beginning of understanding. They would leave Duru together. Wherever that path led, it would not be easy. But it would be honest. The villagers gathered in silence as Obiora and Chidubem stood side by side at the edge of Duru. The wedding decorations still clung to the village square, but the celebration had long since faded. What remained was something heavier, a lesson, a consequence, and a shared fate. Chidubem had accepted the oracle's decree. There was no fight in him now, only quiet understanding. Obiora, for her part, carried the sorrow of shattered dreams, but also a strange calmness, as though, deep down, she had expected that peace would never come without a price. Together, they turned away from the village and walked toward the forest. The air grew thicker with each step, humming with unseen energy. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in golden beams, and birds watched silently from the trees. The forest, once a place Obiora had left behind, now welcomed her back, not as a daughter, not as a runaway, but as someone who had truly chosen her own path. Chidubem followed closely, unsure of what waited but certain he had to face it. Eventually, they reached a hidden glade where trees circled like guardians. From the shadows emerged figures, not quite human, not quite spirit. These were Obiora's kin, creatures shaped by the forest, their bodies shifting between animal, human, and ethereal forms. Obiora stepped forward and bowed her head. Her parents approached slowly. Her mother's eyes, though clouded with pain, held no malice. "I didn't expect to see you return," she said softly. Obiora nodded. "I come not as your daughter alone, but as someone who has chosen her fate." The forest creatures watched in silence as Chidubem stepped forward, his head bowed in humility. "I was selfish," he said. "I came with intentions unworthy of Obiora. But I have learned. I accept the oracle's judgment. I will stay with her. I will protect her. And if you allow me, I will learn your ways." There was a long pause. Then, Obiora's father spoke. "The forest does not reject those who are willing to grow." He looked at his daughter. "And you, child, have walked a hard path. But you have returned with your truth." Obiora's mother stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on Chidubem's shoulder. "You may stay. But understand, this world is not like yours. You must adapt, listen, and learn. No deceit can live here." "I understand," Chidubem said. And so, they were accepted. The forest life was unlike anything Chidubem had known. Days moved not by clocks but by the sun's warmth and the wind's whisper. The creatures of the woods were kind but cautious. Some bore feathers, others had glowing skin or eyes that changed with the moon. Magic flowed through the trees, through the air, through the food they ate and the songs they sang. Obiora returned to her natural rhythm. Some days she stayed in human form, walking hand in hand with Chidubem through the flowering groves. Other times, she became something else, python, spirit, wind, and danced with the energy of the land. Chidubem struggled at first. The forest did not make things easy. He had to learn to forage, to speak without words, to sit still and listen. But he tried. He asked questions. He helped build shelters, gather herbs, and care for the youngest of the forest kin. Slowly, the creatures warmed to him. They watched as he worked beside Obiora, never once turning away from her true form. And Obiora, once shadowed by loneliness and rejection, now found herself surrounded by love, not the kind that clung or demanded, but the kind that simply accepted. In time, they built a home together at the edge of a clearing, made from woven vines and glowing bark. It wasn't the life Obiora had once imagined, but it was real, and it was hers. She and Chidubem often sat by a small pool under the stars. On one such night, Chidubem turned to her and said, "I thought I was coming to you to find gain. But I found something more valuable, truth." Obiora smiled gently. "And I thought love would only bring sorrow. But maybe love isn't just something that arrives. Maybe it's something we learn to carry." They didn't return to Duru. But stories of them lingered. The villagers spoke of the wedding that ended in silence, of the girl who had always seemed touched by something ancient. Some said she had turned into a snake and vanished. Others claimed she had married the forest itself. Children whispered her name in stories by the fire, and the elders nodded, knowing that truth sometimes hides in tales. The oracle's decree remained a quiet memory, a lesson that echoed through generations, that intentions matter more than appearances, that honesty is the root of love, and that sometimes, the path we fear the most is the one we were meant to walk. Obiora and Chidubem lived out their days in the forest, not in luxury, not in ease, but in truth, growth, and connection. They found peace not in escaping the past, but in learning to live with it, shoulder to shoulder. And so their story became more than just a tale of curses and transformation. It became a story of redemption. A story of choice. A story of love that had to be earned, not given. And the forest, ever ancient, ever wise, wrapped its arms around them, welcoming them not as strangers, but as its own.